ProudMouth.
Hello and welcome to another Be Your Own Loud podcast. My name is Matt Halloran. I'm your host today, and we're going to talk to Johnny D, the ever-present entrepreneur. We're going to not only talk to him about his entrepreneurial journey, but more importantly, we're going to talk and spend some time talking about his new idea, Wenu, and how he came up with the idea and how he's helped create the world's largest online menu. Johnny, welcome to the show.
Be your own loud.
So Johnny, how did we meet? Do you remember who introduced us?
Oh gosh. I had saw you interviewing a good friend of mine, Ryan Gill.
Yep.
It was an excellent podcast. And I'm new to the world of podcasting as a listener. And it really opened me up. And I started checking out some other things. But I shared that because I like Ryan and I like you now. And, you know, it's very, very inspiring.
The Gathering is coming up. I don't know if you're tuned into this, everybody, but there's something called The Gathering, and you need to check it out. We'll make sure that we have it in the show notes. It's this humongous event that's got stages all over the world, actually, if not
yeah.
America. And I'm signed up for it. I've got an Illuminati pass, which I'm like,
Nice.
yeah, let's go back. That's Ryan Gill's baby. And actually, it's Stephanie, who's the GM for The Gathering, was on one of these Restreams a little while ago. And I want to thank Restream, by the way, Restream.io, for giving us this unbelievable technology to use. All right, Johnny. So you started being an entrepreneur when we had our pre-call. You and I have a lot in common. You started being an entrepreneur super, super early. So talk about that. Like, how did that happen? Where'd that come from?
Well, I think that's something that's in the DNA. It can be taught and learned as with anything, but I think that's something that I personally had in my DNA. Just growing up around me, I was influenced by entrepreneurship. My uncles both ran their own businesses. One ran a very successful karate studio here in Toronto, and another one had a plethora of different businesses throughout my childhood growing up. So there was that. And then I didn't grow up with my father in my life too much. He was an entrepreneur as well. He had his own auto body shop. So, you know, I wasn't influenced by that. But as I look at how my life panned out, I can't help but think that was somewhat in my DNA from my uncles and my own father, right? And then I grew up raised by a single mom, and she worked 3 jobs. So I had the hardworking aspects. You got entrepreneurship, hardworking, and I just became a hardworking entrepreneur, I guess.
Well, and you also had time, which was fun, because that was one of the things you and I had talked about, is because your mom worked so much like mine did, you had time to get yourself in just a little bit of trouble in good ways and bad ways, right?
Definitely.
And you had the opportunity at a young age to see opportunity and take advantage of that. Could you share the Chuck E. Cheese story, dude? I just so good.
Yeah, sure. So me and my friends used to hang out behind this shopping plaza where Chuck E. Cheese was back in the day. You want to talk about opportunity? You noticed an opportunity, all right. They were hucking hundreds of thousands of tickets out every single night. These are the tickets that you redeemed for the big prizes, right? So there was a dumpster there full of tickets. We did a little dumpster dive, and we used to go in and shop the top shelf, you know, as little kids. And honestly, I had this, I joke that this was the first Bitcoin, because we were literally mining something from nothing, you know. This was Bitcoin before Bitcoin, you know. And it's funny enough, that was my first job when I first got my social insurance number that we have here in Canada to be able to work. I was 14 years old. I went and worked at Chuck E. Cheese. Came full circle. Yeah. So, yeah. But prior to that, even I saw opportunity. I always lived in apartment buildings. And then when I was about 7 or 8, I moved into a townhouse complex, and they had these garbage huts. So there was, as opposed to taking your garbage to the incinerator chute in a condo or building and you throw it down, there were 3 huts around this complex that was about 80 townhouses. You got to take your garbage to the hut. What is this, you know? So I remember printing flyers. My mom had a friend who had a computer. I don't even know what year this was. I was 8. So yeah, like this is like 89, you know? We printed these flyers and I went and passed them out. I wish I had a copy of it. It was like 25 cents a bag. But you better believe that everyone was signing 25 cents a bag. Like, sure. So I was going around collecting, and It's crazy now because as I am a homeowner myself for the first time within the past couple of years, I became one. And I said, told my mom, I said, I'm going to get a kid to do the snow removal. Get some kid. They don't exist.
Well, they don't.
There are no hustler kids around. And if there was, and they put on a cute smile, they would be a multimillionaire because people want that, and it doesn't exist anymore, you know? So yeah, I guess I grew up in a time where it did exist. I made it happen whenever I saw opportunity. So
I've tried to instill that in my kids too. And it's funny because they did do that, and we weren't formal enough to do flyers, but I made them knock on doors. It's unbelievable. I mean, the opportunity to be confident, right?
Yeah.
And walk, say, hi, I am, right? So we role played all this. And here's what I'd love to have the chance with you. And how many people said yes? My kids were like, wow, Dad, that was really easy. And I'm like, just like you just said, Johnny, nobody does it anymore. So you're filling a great vacuum. Now let's talk about vacuums, dude, because here is where I believe your genius is, right? Well, not only that, and there's a lot of other stories we could tell, which we'll save for another podcast. Okay. I just want to make sure that we're clear.
Good.
You're coming back. Just so you know. This idea of Wenu, what is it? Where did it come from? Let's go there.
Yeah. So Wenu it's basically for anyone with a culinary talent to be able to monetize that. So it sounds very vast and all encompassing because it is. It's literally for anyone who can cook or bake or make pickles or whatever the case is to be able to monetize that talent. Full disclosure, so I'm not the first to come up with this at all. I thought I was, as with many other things in my life. And then I hit old Google and I say, wow, this is like a whole, rabbit hole of home chefery. So earliest examples that I could find is like dating back to like 2015. There were some ones in Toronto, there were some ones in Edmonton, and going back even further, if you were to look, Craigslist is a goldmine for ideas, because if you were to look like, I don't know how long it's been around, but like mid 90s, I bet you if you look 96, 97 Craigslist, you would see the beginnings of Uber. You would see, hey, driving down San Francisco or whatever, anyone want to pitch, or vice versa. Hey, anyone going down to San Diego, I'll throw $50. The smart guy looking at that back in 97 said that's Uber, and basically, so I looked at all these ones that had existed and I saw how I could improve them because they failed. There's 3 that are still operational in California, where this is 100% legal. The States is more progressive than we are here in Canada in terms of home food laws. California is leading the way. Wyoming has great cottage country food laws. I believe Ohio is next. Florida's looking at passing some stuff. The entire UK. If you mention this to someone from Southeast Asia, they say, what? Like, that's a way of life. That's like, the lady at the end of the block makes the best whatever soup. Yeah, I buy it from her. They honestly, like most people that I explain it to from even like South America, they're like, yeah, like that's how it is. You buy off the local person, and you cannot support more locally unless you pay yourself to cook. You can't support more locally than a chef who in these times is most likely an out of work chef, a very talented person that lives on your block. So I tell people, first thing, I didn't come up with the idea, but I do think that I have a way to juge it, if that makes sense, to be able to make a minor change to make it that much more appealing.
The logo's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
There's so much. And then for all of you who just for knowledge, you can go to the website right now and you can sign up like I did. So I signed up as not a chef, as a consumer, a foodie. Thank you. These come up with this kind of filtering system to make sure that I was going to be getting the content that I was for.
It's not built in yet, but I would hope that we could in the future grow into some sort of AI sort of learning for the benefit of the consumer, not for anything crazy. Basically, when you're joining up, like we want to know what you're interested in so that we can show you stuff. But I'll be quite open and honest with you. That's almost more valuable to the chef. And the chef, sorry, Matt, the chef is my client. The chef is my customer. You would be the chef's customer. I give the chef the tools to best make that the most positive transaction possible, with tools of transparency and cleanliness and stuff like that we can get into. But basically, my goal is to service that chef. So imagine I tell that chef signing onto the platform, say, hey, what type of stuff do you make? Great. Because you know what? In this particular area, I got about 70 people that have said they like pasta in the past, month. So it's data-driven recipes, which that doesn't happen anywhere. Like restaurants are coming up with what they think will be cool, but if you were to go to a restaurant and say, hey, like I actually have like the demographic in this area, 70 people are saying they want some sort of Asian, dish, whatever it is, right? I find that would be very valuable information to anyone trying to, produce anything food-wise, right? So,
well, instead of them having to come up with it in a vacuum, right, brother? I mean, that's what happens a lot of times. I know some chefs here in town. There's some restaurants that we frequent regularly. A lot of it has to do with what's in season, what they can get.
Yeah, for sure.
Or creatively, but how awesome would it be able to go to them and say, and you said 70, which this is going to be hundreds of people, but the people going to a specific chef and saying, okay, well, here's your area of expertise. We have 300 people in a 50-mile radius who really want you to make this. So it's data driven. So let's start there. But then what does this allow the chef to do? Let's unpack this more.
This allows the chef to cater to their community. There's also options that this could open up. Now, I'm on level 17.3 in my mind, and I always, as a startup entrepreneur, have to remind myself, the MVP. Our MVP is already going to be pretty robust. I'm not, I don't subscribe to you should be embarrassed by your first, iteration. No, I don't really want to be embarrassed, by it. I want to send it out there in the schoolyard and it not get bullied, basically. So I think with this first iteration, we've put a lot into it. I think to your question, another, again, version 17.3 thing that we could implement is something whereby it's like Groupon. So there are meals where you're not going to make it for 2 people. You're not going to make it for 10 people. It's a pig roast. You need 30 people, So I'm going to do a pig roast. I'm Chef Johnny. I'm going to do a pig roast on Sunday if 30 people buy into this by Wednesday. I'll go pick it up Thursday. I'll, coons it, make sure it's all ready. I feel like that's a huge opportunity. I feel as well when there's one person and it's a direct chef to foodie relationship, there's so much more that can happen in terms of support. When you go and you spend money and you tip and like the intention is there, but when you're dealing directly with the chef, that's a different ballgame. Okay. What if that chef they dream of having a brick and mortar, that's totally fine. They would be essentially moving off of Wenu, which is counterintuitive that I would want to support that, but I fully want to support that. I want to help them grow their brands and be able to take their customers with them, right? So when you give people the opportunity to showcase themselves and make that connection, I don't think it's that far off to say I have my goal meter on the side, but it's not just a goal meter. It's, Matt, I want to buy a new stovetop. The stove is $5,000, but you know what? It's going to help if you tell that story. So now it's like Kickstarter. There's, so many things that could be incorporated into it once you have that connection. And I feel that flipping a toonie somebody's way Sorry, that's totally Canadian.
That was pretty Canadian. Yes, it was. But
flipping a tip somebody's way is great and all, but knowing what that's going towards, I think is that much more valuable to both sides, you know, and I want to give chefs that opportunity. Let's be realistic. There is a forest fire in the industry right now. These massive sequoias are burning to the ground, let alone the little trees. Okay. Now, when the fire is out and the dust settles, sequoias don't just come out of nowhere. Okay. It's going to take saplings. And the restaurant industry, when they first look at something like Wenu, can easily, as I have seen, get their arms up. Wait, what is this? I paid the price to have this. And we are not competing with a restaurant at all, first of all, which I can get more into later. But we are helping reseed the industry. People, and I can give great examples, Heartbreak Chef here in Toronto. I think that's his handle on Instagram. Man, this guy was making stuff from his home. He has built an amazing brand. He has sold out chicken sandwiches, 1,000 chicken sandwiches, people lined up around the block from an Instagram account he created from his house, you know? The problem is with people doing that is that it's disjointed on all these things. Instagram, Facebook, even people's own website, you know, how did they get discovered, right?
And that's why the app aspect of this is so wonderful. In fact, you just triggered like 3 things that I want to focus on. One is the movie Chef.
Yes.
With Jon Favreau.
I'm terrible with movie specifics, but I do remember seeing this and I really liked it.
Well, the cool thing about it is his son is Instagram, tweeting, live tweeting and all of this stuff. And that's how they bring people to this food truck that his dad, after being terribly disgraced, kind of went on a road trip with his kids. We here in Kalamazoo, so I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, we have something called Kalamazoo Menu. And what it is it's local restaurants. They have to be locally owned, right? So the big chain stores don't have access to this, but they will post their specials and all of those things. And we have saved, just I'm out of a total pride thing here. We've so many small businesses here in Kalamazoo who are restaurants with this Kalamazoo, it's called Kalamazoo Flavor Menu. In fact, some of the places that launched during the pandemic have had to grow and expand. In fact, one is called Burger Bros, and they now have 3 locations that serve round sandwiches and then something called turbo chicken. And it's because communities, and I want everybody to hear this, and this is why what Johnny is creating here is so freaking brilliant, is we as communities are like those Asian countries who are like, yeah, this is an afterthought. We already do this. We want to support this. We want to, those of us who are foodies want to support local businesses and support local restaurants. And there are many, many models out there. But here's another question, and I'm still trying to wrap my brain around this. We talk a lot on this podcast and as a company about making sure that you have a very laser focused marketing approach. And Johnny, you're not doing that, dude. This is a huge net. How are you going to get the word out here in order to make this successful? Are you starting specifically in the greater Toronto area? Because it asked me where I lived here on the site. So break that down. How are you going to attack this from a marketing standpoint?
For sure. So we're hyper local marketing. So through Facebook and even snail mail, which has a crazy growth percentage of open rate during COVID, right? As compared to years past, right? So that type of approach to a chef in this community, and now we help him build the brand within that community, especially in a city like Toronto, we're the 4th or 5th largest city in North America. Lots of condos, 1-2 people cooking in a condo complex can feed a lot of people in a very short walk. We are hyper local in that sense, but once things are smoothed out here and we work out all the bugs within Toronto, I hope I'm not, being too naive, but I literally think with a little coaching and help that I could hand this to a chef in UK and they just go online and run with it. It's not rocket science by any means. It's creating a connection with food. if I thought it was going to be an extreme uphill battle to get people to like good food, I would have quit a long time ago. So sometimes I'm naive in the way I think about things. I have a extremely Panglossian view of how I like to go about things, but it serves me well.
But you have to, brother, right? And that's one of the reasons why all of the entrepreneurial ventures that you have, which you've had a number of them, have had this level of success. You have to be wildly optimistic and also have really thick skin when the bumps happen in the road. Which let's talk about that with this project specifically. What are some of the hurdles that you've experienced, and more importantly, where have you pulled? What sort of resources or what have you done mentally to overcome some of the obstacles that have come up?
I relate everything back to past experiences, not just business, personal, whatever it is. And in terms of hardships and challenges, like within a business, very few things compare to things that I've been through in my life. I've had a theme of adversity through my life growing up, without getting too crazy into it. Like I grew up single mom. I didn't grow up, I never say that, I grew up with nothing. That would be a slap in the face to my mom. I grew up with a lot of love and support, but we had hardships. I have 2 aunts that were murdered in separate occasions, separate years. My family, I was young, but my family felt those hardships, and we moved lots of times up until the age of 7. There's other hardships, but I could say that it all culminated when I was 17. I had brain surgery. I was given a 10% chance of living. They literally told my mom I was going to die. They said that they could do an emergency brain surgery. And 5.5 hours later, they removed 3 abscesses and a golf ball-sized blood clot. It was a year-long recovery. I had 56 staples. I don't know if you can see, I have a scar that goes all the way across the top of my head there. When we talk about challenges in a business, and I compare it to that, it pales in comparison, Well,
I love that. And I think that's such a wildly important thing for business owners, entrepreneurs, people who are really trying to, again, rise above the noise and be their own loud, is really putting things into perspective. Having appropriate perspective, I think, changes a lot of stuff for people. Understanding that this is an amazing idea. And Johnny, I hope you make more money than you could ever want to make and help so many more people have amazing experiences with food, right? That would be how awesome would that be? Supporting local artists who make food. It's unbelievable to me, the level of art and love that goes into that creation of something that we share together. And it's such a basic thing. And we talk a lot about, if you truly want to connect with a client or a prospect in the business world, one of the greatest things you can do is eat with them, right? It's freaking breaking bread, man. There's nothing more basic than that. And if you can do it while supporting somebody and on top of that, having food that you absolutely love, that's fantastic. Now, when I asked you this earlier, you turned a little shade of a red here. So I'm going to ask you this again, but do you consider yourself as an influencer, right? Because you're quite influential, but do you see this opportunity as Johnny D being an influencer and people coming on board because of you and your energy and persona?
Influencer is a strong word. It's one of those ones that I don't think you can say or should say about yourself. Is anyone sending me free products? No. No, they're not yet. But this is damn good. Yeah. If I can use my platform to talk about great brands, whether they're mine or other people's, and people follow that, so be it. If I look back at the past, actually, it's funny. There was this group on Facebook. I partied in the 90s in Toronto or whatever. And it's like these people just posting like pictures. This is like before cell phones were everywhere, but like, I guess people are scanning like their old black photography photos or whatever, but there's all these pictures of parties from back in the days that I used to go to. Oh. And there's random people that I never met in my life. Well, I must have met once, because they're wearing my t-shirt. They're wearing my hoodie. So me and my buddy, we would print these shirts called Sketch Bros. we thought we were pretty sketchy back then. And we would go and sell them at parties. And to look back, I just stumbled upon this group like a couple weeks back, and I was like, holy crap, like I have no idea who this is. They're wearing my shirt, you know? And I was like 14 or 15 at the time, you know? These are some underground parties. This wasn't necessarily in the club days, you know? But yeah, I think I've always had some sort of, I haven't tried to be influential, but I've always been attracted to making a brand and making a dollar straight up.
Well, and when you look at, if everybody, you know, goes ahead and checks out Johnny on LinkedIn, you're going to see some of the other brands that he's created. And when you look at the brand themselves, not just the Wenu brand, which, by the way, you really do need to spend time on that site, because from a branding perspective, from a messaging perspective, it is about as dialed in can be.
Oh, that means a lot to me.
I'm glad that you look at that, your influence in a little bit different of a way. But I also really want to make sure that we deconstruct one thing before we really wrap up today, which is from a systems perspective. Launched, Johnny, so many businesses, and some of them are quite active. How into the weeds do you get, my friend? I mean, so are you writing systems? Are you doing that sort of stuff? Do you have somebody who you rely on for that? Because if you look at all of the businesses that you're connected with on LinkedIn that you built, right? Did you do it all? Do you have a silent part? I'm confused on how you can do all of these things and have them do them so well.
Thank you. I have some great help. I definitely, you know, for different, I can't name, you know, one that helps me with everything, but I have different team members in each of the brands. Okay. But systems wise, you know, I heard a saying, this was a while back, but I was already implementing this in some sort of fashion, but people don't run businesses, systems run businesses, and people run systems. So I don't know who said that, but they're a genius. And when I heard that, I said, yeah, kind of, you know, strive to implement some sort of system and then put someone in power to run that system that runs everything else, you know? So with my cleaning businesses, that's all me. I've taken on help and partnership, which has been amazing, in one of my best friends that I grew up with. He's helped me out immensely. And because of that great partnership that we've had with the cleaning, he's actually my partner in Wenu. His name's Justin. Hey. Insanely smart guy. I'm blessed to know the guy. So I do have great help in that regard. System wise though, it's just do it. Just try, you know. Wenu's the first company that is going to have a business plan. Sorry, Trees, my cannabis dispensary, it has a business plan. Obviously, we have an amazing CTO over there, Joe Navarro, who takes care of everything. That's not my shtick per se. I just help out with the marketing for that. But with most things, you just got to do it. It's Nike, just do it. You know. Now, with that said, I do not subscribe to the unicorn evaluations that go on in, you know, today's side. Hey, I'd love to be one and get a valuation of $1 billion. Yeah. But as an investor, as a founder, I can't wrap my head around something losing money for 1 year, let alone 10 years, 20 years. That's mind blowing to me. You got to jot it down on the back of a napkin. It costs this much to do this. I'm going to sell it for this. This is the profit. I have a saying, I couldn't be nonprofit if I was atheist, you know? And it's from an old rap song of mine, but it sticks with me, you know? And I'm not super money driven, but if it doesn't make sense, what are we doing, you know?
There's nothing wrong with making sure that you're making a profit, dude. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with wanting things to be successful. You know, we've kind of equated profitability with success, and that's the reality of.
I just don't want it to come off, you know, like I'm super money driven. I think as well on that note is like you hear a lot of people say do things that don't scale, and I kind of believe in that. Maybe if I could paraphrase it a little bit or reword it, I think that the better way to look at it is do things that scale. Like shit, you have to, it's got to scale, but scale it in a way that's not scalable. Okay. That, I can think of an example, you're selling cakes, you know, but each cake is going to come with this and it's going to get hand delivered. And That's not scalable. The scaling part is not scalable, but you use that as a means to hyperscale something, you know? The actual thing, it better be scalable. You know, cakes, and you can make more of them and you can sell more of them. That has to be quantifiably scalable. I think the means by which you scale, you can cheat a little bit to not be scalable when you first start.
Well, and I think that what Wenu has done, or what it is going to do, is allow people to feel a real connection, right? I also think it's going to allow chefs to feel a real connection, right? And I think it's interesting. You brought up Ryan Gill at the beginning. When I interviewed Ryan, I said, you know, well, what are you doing now? And he said, well, my mission is to cure the world of loneliness. And you're doing that with food, right? I mean, you're part of this equation, and we want to do this at ProudMouth by helping people to stop being the best kept secret in their area, right? It's all about connection, everybody. And the more and deeper connection that you can make using whatever media you want, podcasting, video, creation of food, creating social events, anything along those lines that you can to allow people to feel connected again. Guys, coming out of COVID, it's going to be years, right? We've got some healing to do as a world and a reconnection that we need to do as a world. And I thank you, Johnny, for creating Wenu, because I believe that is going to be a connection point for people, a great way for people.
I like that you mentioned that the chefs as well, because it is two-sided. And as I said from the start, my first customer is actually the chef, right? When's the last time you saw a chef come to a table?
Well, I'm a little spoiled personally, but and the only reason why is because my wife was a chef, and so we ask sometimes. Usually to be complimentary, because chefs don't usually get that, right? They get people complaining about stuff. And so when we go to a restaurant and there's something exceptional, we actually ask to speak to the chef, and they out, and we love them and hope that they continue to kick ass. So
no, that's amazing. Most people, when I ask, they hum and they haw, and I say, was it in a movie? And they say, yeah, it was in a movie. And that's the sad truth of it, is that the last time you probably saw a chef, except for yourself and a few others who are complimentary to the chefs, which is amazing because they don't get that. Besides that, though, it's totally relegated to Hollywood, and that's really sad. To your point, it's on both sides. So from the chef standpoint, I don't like general statements, but I will say that chefs are creative people. They get into this to be creative with their talents and learn how to do that safely and tastefully. And then you go out and you learn, and then you go get your first job, and they say, hey, go work in that back room back there. Don't come out. Okay, just stay back there. And whatever you learn to make, we're just going to need you to make what I say back there. These 10 menu items, can you just go do that? And again, don't show your face, you know? This is the recipe for how to have a creative person's soul sucked from them. And next thing you know, it's a spiral in the industry, and it's not that necessarily the healthiest lifestyle that gets led. And it's due to lack of connection. That's what it is. You know, the chef is missing that connection as well. And once they are able to get that, I think it's going to be a whole new world.
Well, so you have the ears of a halfway decent amount of people. What do you want people to do?
Sign up. I can't guarantee that we will be in your area within the next week or month or year. We're growing in Toronto right now, and then we'll be focusing on UK and California. Who knows? Who knows what could happen? I also can't stop someone if you want to download it as a chef and start making stuff in your area. Who am I to say anything, right? It's just a tool for you to be able to monetize your talents. That's all it is.
So please make sure that you, everybody, not only follow Johnny on LinkedIn, because he's always posting super cool stuff, but please make sure that you go to the website. That way you guys can sign up for it too. The onboarding, it was fun. It was fun. How many onboarding experiences do you have signing up for something? It got me thinking, right? So Johnny, I was, what kind of foods do you like? And first off, it made me hungry, which is probably really good for your for your system. And
it's get hungry, right?
Get hungry, man, absolutely.
And the thing is, there's many places where you can go to get food. We're where you come to get hungry.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So it's not when you get hungry, it's when you get hungry.
Nice. Well, Johnny, hey man, it's such an honor to know you. What I'd love to have the opportunity to do is, just check in with you, 6 months or whatever, where you're at, what you're doing, what's changed, what hasn't. I think everybody who's listening to this is going to want to hitch themselves to your wagon and find out where this journey takes, because it's such an amazing idea. And you're truly a good human, man. And we all appreciate you a whole bunch.
That means the world to me. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome, man. Well, if you have not subscribed to this podcast or this live stream, please make sure that you do. It's very, very easy to do. And there's all sorts of links and stuff to do that. And for all of us here at ProudMouth and everybody at Wenu Eat, and of course, all of the other business ventures that Johnny has, make sure that you subscribe to all of that stuff. And we'll see you all on the other side of the mic very soon. Thank you for listening to Be Your Own Loud, where we reverse engineer success to help you accelerate your influence and break free from the torment of sales. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our podcast, share it with others in your company or profession, follow us on social media. This podcast is brought to you by ProudMouth, the Influence Accelerators. Visit us at proudmouth.com and join our Influence Accelerator Academy for free to enhance your marketing mindset and know-how.